This story keeps getting darker, and every new detail makes one thing clearer. The Beckham family feud is no longer just a disagreement. It's a slow, painful separation. And at the center of it all is a son who seems torn, and a wife who is not letting go. Before we get into the latest twist, make sure you're subscribed, because this Beckham story is evolving fast, and every update reveals something far more uncomfortable than the last. Now let's talk about what's just happened. Because while the public narrative has been that Brooklyn Beckham is done with his family, that he's chosen a side, that he's cut them off completely, the truth may be more complicated. Over the weekend, Brooklyn was spotted partying in West Hollywood. No Nicola, no united front, no carefully curated couple image, just Brooklyn, out with friends, laughing, socializing, looking, for the first time in months, like someone stepping slightly outside the bubble he's been living in. And that sighting matters, because it came at the exact moment sources revealed something very telling. Brooklyn, according to insiders, wants to reconcile with his family. Let that sink in. After the lawyers, after the blocking, after the vow renewals without his parents, after missing his father's 50th birthday, after skipping knighthood celebrations, after cutting off siblings, Brooklyn reportedly wants back. And that alone tells you this story is not as simple as Brooklyn versus the Beckhams. Because if Brooklyn truly believed his parents were toxic, controlling, or harmful, there would be no desire to reconcile. But there is. And according to multiple sources, the real barrier now is not Brooklyn. It's Nicola. A source close to the situation has been blunt. They say Nicola remains obsessed with driving the rift. Obsessed. That's not the language of someone quietly protecting boundaries. That's the language of someone who refuses to let a wound heal. And when you look at the pattern, it's hard to ignore. Because every time the Beckhams extend an olive branch, every time David or Victoria makes even the smallest gesture of love, something escalates. A block, a deletion, a legal instruction, a social media wipe. David and Victoria don't respond with retaliation. They don't go public with attacks. They don't issue statements. They post throwbacks. They say the door is always open. They remind the world that Brooklyn is their son, and that restraint matters, especially when you look at what Brooklyn is losing by staying cut off. Brooklyn's entire public profile is built on visibility. Cooking videos, brand deals, his hot sauce brand, Cloud 23, and the numbers don't lie. Since cutting ties with his immediate family, Brooklyn has been losing followers. An average of 188 a day? That's not just a statistic. That's public sentiment shifting. Meanwhile, David and Victoria's following has surged. David gains thousands of followers every single day. Victoria, too. The audience isn't confused about where their sympathy lies, and that should worry Brooklyn. Because unlike his parents, Brooklyn doesn't have decades of goodwill to fall back on. His relevance is fragile, and it's becoming increasingly clear that distancing himself from the Beckham name hasn't strengthened his identity, it's weakened it. And then there's the vow renewal, a second wedding ceremony held at the Peltz family estate. 200 guests, no David, no Victoria, no Romeo, no Cruz, no Harper, not even Brooklyn's grandparents. Let that land. A family that once defined togetherness, excluded completely. And if that wasn't enough, Harper, a 14-year-old girl, was left out of her brother's life milestone. That is not boundary setting. That is erasure. Sources say Victoria was devastated, not angry, not defensive, heartbroken, because Brooklyn is her firstborn, and behind closed doors, she fears she may never truly get him back. And here's the part that matters most. Despite everything, David and Victoria still tried. They didn't respond to the lawyer letter with threats. They didn't escalate. They didn't retaliate. They complied. David was told to communicate only through lawyers, and he did. Imagine being told you can't speak directly to your own child, that every word must be filtered through legal representatives. That is not normal family conflict. That is nuclear. And yet, Brooklyn still speaks to his grandparents, which tells you something crucial. He hasn't cut off family entirely. He's cut off specific people. And when you ask why, every road leads back to Nicola. Time and again, sources say the same thing. Brooklyn is conflicted. Brooklyn is emotionally overwhelmed. Brooklyn is easily led, and Nicola remains his rock. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A rock can be a foundation or a weight. And right now, Nicola looks less like support and more like an anchor pulling Brooklyn further away from the life he came from. Because David and Victoria are not villains here. They are parents watching their son disappear. They have never publicly insulted Nicola. They have never humiliated Brooklyn. They have never shut the door. Brooklyn, on the other hand, has blocked them, issued legal instructions, and allowed the narrative to paint them as aggressors without correcting it. And that silence speaks volumes. The fact that Brooklyn still wants reconciliation tells you he knows something is wrong. The fact that Nicola continues to push distance tells you she does not want resolution. And that imbalance is dangerous. Because this isn't just about a feud anymore. It's about a young man losing his family, his public goodwill, and potentially his sense of self, while David and Victoria continue to wait, quietly, patiently, loving him anyway. If this rift ever heals, it will not be because of ultimatums. It will not be because of lawyers. And it will not be because of loyalty tests. It will be because Brooklyn finally chooses to think for himself. And until then, this story isn't about parents who failed their son. It's about a son who is being pulled further away from home by someone who doesn't want him to return. And that is the real tragedy here. The longer this drags on, the more irreversible it starts to feel. Because time is not neutral in family feuds like this. Time doesn't heal by default. Time hardens positions. Every missed birthday, every skipped milestone, every silent Christmas. They don't just pass, they stack. Brooklyn may believe he can pause this situation and return when it suits him. But families don't work like brand partnerships. You don't simply relaunch a relationship after years of distance without damage. And that's what makes this so unsettling. David and Victoria are aging parents. Harper is growing up fast. Romeo and Cruz are building adult lives of their own. The family Brooklyn left behind is not frozen in time waiting for him. And if reconciliation does come, it will require humility. It will require independence. And it will require Brooklyn to step out of the shadow of someone else's resentment. Because right now, the question isn't whether the Beckhams will forgive Brooklyn. They already have. The real question is whether Brooklyn will ever forgive them for refusing to hate the people he hates. If you want to stay on top of this story as it continues to unfold, make sure you're subscribed, because this feud is far from over.